All right. So, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our Voices of Liberation podcast. For all of you who may be new, so TAG stands for Take Action Advocacy Group, and we are a Black liberation organization, and we focus on social change and social justice in small communities because we understand that is where a lot of your isms live and take place and rooted in families and tradition, and there's Black people there. So we focus our attention a lot on those smaller communities. We have been around for 10 years now, 10 and a half years now. And the way we take action is we have a complaint program where people can call in and get assistance really on how to navigate the system. We always like to say the police have the system and the people have us. So we answer any questions that they may have, connect them with mental health support because there's a lot of trauma when people are fighting racism. And then we also make sure that we give them advocacy plans. Most of them you don't hear about. They don't turn into anything people hear about. We just help them silently. Sometimes they're turned into advocacy campaigns, like our McKees for Police Violence, because that came from several complaints we got from the community. We also have chapters, adult and youth chapters, where they work on community action plans. And then we also do trainings and consulting as well. We kind of took the pick your brain conversations to a different level because we got sick of that shit. So that is how we take action. Did I leave anything else out? I do not believe. So thank you all for joining us. We've been doing this podcast now. It's going on 2 years now. And it started initially because within our complaint program, we just felt like the people we were working with weren't getting a lot of attention onto their stories because we work with the people who don't have videos a lot of times. So people don't believe them. So we wanted to do the podcast really to just get awareness out for the complaints we were working with, where people had reached out to us. And then the Most High, the ancestors kind of took it to this level. So that is where we are now. So thank you all for joining us. In today's topic, we're going to talk about the importance of Pride and Juneteenth, the true meaning of those days. And to start the conversation off about Juneteenth, I'm going to bring on Kenneth Williamson. So thank you
Hello.
for joining us today, Kenneth. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good, good. You can just introduce yourself to the audience and let them know a little bit about the work you do.
So, yeah, my name is Kenneth Williamson. I'm from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Um, I'm the executive director of United Men of Color, and United Men of Color is a group that provides resources for formerly incarcerated men,
Awesome. Thank
uh,
you.
housing, knowing your rights, uh, um, jobs,
Mm-hmm.
financial literacy, just a bunch of different stuff. We want to be the avenue for men here in the state of Kentucky.
Awesome. Thank you, Kenneth. So I rock with Kenneth with and for BL Moving for Black Lives. Thank you so much for coming on. So today we're going to talk about Juneteenth. And Juneteenth, in my opinion, has been co-opted by white people, whiteness,
For sure.
in essence, ever since it became a national holiday. So I wanted to have this discussion and just to give some background to you all in the audience. Then Juneteenth has been interesting this year for TAG. So we have an active McKeesport Police Violence campaign now, and in response to us, even though we have clear demands, they have worked with a group of local Black people to do this Juneteenth. We've worked with them for the past few years, and it's been fine without any, local government involvement. However, this year, uh, people pushed for that. They responded, based on some of the noise we were making. So they gave them a location, but then they took it away when they didn't like something they did. So we actually have an active boycott now against people doing public facing events with the city for that reason. So they literally did what we said they would do. So now they took the location away and they just working with other folks and we get fireworks.
Mm.
So that was the solution. So it just brought it back to something we've been saying for a while around people using Juneteenth, as a way to make it look like, while they're doing something. So why do you think it is so important to challenge the narrative around Juneteenth?
Well, for me, again, as you all know, I'm from Kentucky.
Mhm.
And so, to be honest, to be perfectly honest, last year was the first year I ever celebrated Juneteenth.
Mm,
Here in the South, we have our Juneteenth will be called the 8th of August.
okay.
And we've been doing that for 150 years.
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I want to say probably that like the 8th of August, about 1863, Andrew Johnson freed his slaves,
Mhm.
right? And that was that day. Around 8 years later, as coincidence would have it, Samuel L. Jackson, not Samuel L. Jackson, but Samuel Johnson organized the event. And here in the South, we've been doing that ever since. So when Juneteenth came up and when they made it a national holiday, I don't think us in particular kind of
Mhm.
recognized it because we'd already been doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had already organized those events, parades, dances, family barbecues, just a good time, just to come back and have a good time. And it fosters a sense of community, right?
Mhm.
It makes us, it gives us hope that things are moving in the right direction, even if it seems like it's a long time to get there. And as you and I know, it's a movement, not a moment, right?
I should.
And so, we've been doing this thing for a while. And so last year, we have started to organize a little more around the date
Mhm.
and bring some importance to that because the rest of the country is doing so also. And we need to tell the story, right? And so we have begun to embrace Juneteenth, but the 8th of August, which will come a little later, is when we really cut up.
So you really cut up.
Yeah, that's when we really cut up right there. So, we've been doing this for a long, long time. So
Mhm.
when, when the rest of the world started doing it, we barely took notice.
Mhm. I should. Yeah. That's so interesting that y'all celebrated in August.
Uh, yeah, because like, again, I say, that's when
Mhm.
Johnson freed
Right.
his own slaves, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And those slaves just thought that was a glorious day or whatever the case may be. Actually, when they actually organized the event 8 years later,
Mhm.
those officials, Johnson included, were in the parade.
Mhm.
The free slaves were thanking them and so forth and so on. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that, I don't even think, to be honest with you, I don't think we even asked for a place to do something in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, I want to say maybe 15 years ago, there's a place outside of Hopkinsville called Crofton, Kentucky, and it was held there for like 40 years.
Mhm.
Well, somebody bought the land and that kind of moved us away. And so we have moved the event up here to Hopkinsville,
Mhm.
but the event is not as close knit and as tight because we brought everybody in one space at that point.
Mhm.
Everybody from the entire city came to one space. And just for context, we got quite a few black folks here. We about like 34, 35% black here in
Mhm.
Hopkinsville, Kentucky. So just imagine that gathering, you know what I'm saying? And so now
Yeah.
what we see is a lot of pockets of things.
Mhm.
People on one side of town organizing something, people on another side of town organizing something. And it seems to, like I said, it's so many black folks here that it just seems to work out. And not that we all are segregated from each other, but we all spin the block and go see what they doing over there. And they'll
Right.
come
Right.
over here and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
But for my children uh, that are coming up, that are growing up, the importance to know our history.
Yeah.
Now you talking about a guy like myself. I'm 47 years old, and I'm just really learning about my history
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
way of doing this work. In
Yeah.
2021. So I'm formally incarcerated in
Mhm.
2021. The governor here in Kentucky executed an executive order and gave formerly incarcerated right folks the right back to vote.
Yeah.
And that's how I become involved in the work. And honestly, that's how I become to learn about my history because they just don't teach it in school.
Mhm.
We know about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Rosa Parks, of course, but there's many more figures. There's many more people that help liberate Black folks that I didn't know about,
Yeah.
and and I got to uplift that, right?
Mhm.
And so I made
Definitely.
it a point to take myself to some places like Alabama and Mississippi, and
Mhm.
learn about the history of what happened to us in this country and why we do celebrate that.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
very, very important to me. Very important.
And it's so important for us to do that, to do those things that we're kind of teaching ourselves because they're not going to teach us, and we shouldn't even expect nor depend, on them to do that. We were celebrating Juneteenth here as well. There's a gentleman here by the name of B. Marshall, and we worked with him for years on Juneteenth celebrations. And I didn't know about Juneteenth. No one taught me that in school. I was 30 when I found out, literally through B. Marshall reaching out saying, "Hey, let's work together on this Juneteenth." And I was like, "What is Juneteenth?" So I had no idea either, what Juneteenth was. And for those who who don't know, it celebrates the time of 1865 in Galveston, Texas, when they found out that slavery was ended. The word had not gotten to them, so when they found out, that was, oh, this is, we have freedom now. So the parades that Kenneth was speaking about was the Jubilee parades that they would have back then, to kind of to celebrate. And it was a time for community people to come together. It's really a time for us, to honor our ancestors, everything that they did for us, what they've been through. So that's why it really irks me when it gets co-opted and colonized to be like a political ploy or like a performative thing, because that's not what it is. That's our holiday. That is something for us. That is a way for us to honor our ancestors. So I do not understand how anyone can even go forth with anything less than that, because that's a sacred, a sacred day for us. So when it got that federal holiday, to me, it wasn't a great thing, because it really took away from the meaning of it, and it also allowed for it to be, used in this kind of a political toy to say, oh no, we do care. We're going to celebrate Juneteenth, or we're going to sell Juneteenth gear, or we're going to, do all those things. But it hasn't been, I would say, a positive thing all around. I don't know if that's been y'all's experience. But I know you said that what the world got it, y'all already been doing it, you know?
But again, like
Hmm.
nobody ever recognized it but us, right?
Right, right,
Yeah, you
right.
know what I mean? Like you say with Juneteenth, we see like we can go in Walmart and around that time frame, you're
Mhm.
gonna see Juneteenth stuff being sold out of Walmart, which we're not gonna buy. Let's be honest about it. You know what I mean? Because we ain't shopping with number black folks around that
Mhm.
time frame anyway. So, but just to see that, right, and just to
Mhm.
see how capitalism just is rampant, and dominant. You know what I mean? It's nasty work. You know what I mean? It really is nasty work. But I think it's up to us as black folks.
Yeah,
It's up to us as community leaders and organizers and stuff like that to keep it
absolutely.
in our community and to keep it amongst us. And we've been doing it, like I said, forever anyway. So we're gonna continue to do it.
Mhm.
I don't even think they even try this way to pull off some of the things that
Mhm.
they try other places. And like you talked about in 1865, them getting the news, right? So we got the news in 1863, and I imagine some other folks got the news,
Yeah.
you know, earlier than that. And that's just them trying to keep things away from us, you know, and so forth and so on. But we overcame that, you know what I mean? And even through Jim Crow and racial atrocities and the murdering of black men and women, we still have that, right? And that still
Mhm.
gives us a sense of hope, and that still gives us a chance to build upon it all.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's so important to build in community, um, and to make sure that you're building community, with the like-minded people, where there's alignment there. So it is so important for us to have these celebrations, and I don't want people to think that we're saying that don't have it. Absolutely, we should have it. We just should not allow it to be co-opted.
Absolutely.
Like you were saying, you never even asked for a place,
No,
to have. You just kind of did it. So a lot of times with these local governments, they'll use that. Well, you can't use our place if you don't do, A, B, C, D, E. If it's not Juneteenth, it's another day. So we have to recognize that. Recognize when that's happening. That doesn't typically happen if you don't know your history.
right. And
If
then,
you.
we'll always move this thing too, to be honest
Mhm.
with you, Fawn. You know what I mean?
Right.
When we have the major gathering, right? Like I said, we got pockets of things going on.
Hmm.
But at nighttime, we'll all come together as a city and we'll move it. And don't nobody know where it's at but the black folks. But of course, law enforcement will know where it's at in an hour or so, you know what I mean? But we're gonna make you organize like you make us organize on the fly.
Absolutely. 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 And then, kind of in closing, is there anything that you wanted to add about Juneteenth and about what it means to you?
It means everything to me. Like you say, it means celebrating our ancestors,
Mhm.
celebrating the folks that put in the work, put in the fight.
That's true.
I told somebody the other day, I was just thinking, I said, it took a lot for us to be here. Do you realize that somebody had to survive coming over
Mm.
in the vessel? Somebody had to survive getting beat. Somebody had to survive the cotton fields. Somebody had to survive uh, uh, drinking out of a nasty water fountain, riding in the back of the bus. Somebody had to do all that just for us to get here. So you damn right we're gonna uplift our people and we're gonna make it known and we're gonna celebrate every time it come around. And for us, what we look at down here in
Mhm.
Hopkinsville is, hey, they gave us 2 days.
Mhm.
So it's a win-win for us. We get to do it twice.
Right. 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 Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Kenneth. And we'll make sure that we put a website and social media for you all, for you in the chat, so people can know how to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about the work you do. It's been an honor to have you. I appreciate you coming on to kind of chop it up about Juneteenth.
Thank you so much, friend. Delighted. The pleasure is all of mine.
Oh, thank you. And then we're gonna have Kenneth back in the end for our last segment that we call talking shit.
I'm
So
ready
now
for
I'm
that.
going to bring on Brittany. Brittany is a longtime friend of mine, a longtime supporter of Tag. She's also on our board as well. So I'm going to bring on Brittany to talk about the meaning, the true meaning of pride. All right. Hello, Brittany. Thank you so much for joining us. So appreciate you coming on today. You can just introduce yourself and tell folks about some of the work you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fawn, for inviting me to be on today. I really appreciate it. And, your sisterhood and always thinking of me. And, just the different intersections of which I work or advocate.
Mhm.
So, first and foremost, my name is Brittany Murray. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am national co-president for an organization called Pride at Work. We are the 2S LGBTQIA plus lobbying arm as well as advocacy constituency group underneath the AFL-CIO, which is the American Federation of Labor, right? So it's the largest labor entity in these Americas, but especially on the Northern continent, with hundreds of affiliate labor groups representing millions of workers who have collective bargaining agreements across the country. And we do extend a little bit of our work into Canada and Mexico and across the pond. But it is our job to ensure that workers, especially those that already have collective bargaining agreements, are being seen, heard, and recognized in those agreements and within
Mhm.
that language, and to ensure that our affiliate groups and the AFL and any broader groups that participate within the labor movement recognize and include to us LGBTQIA plus people. So
Mhm.
that is what we do. And I really do appreciate you having me come on because this Pride Month for me in particular has been, for lack of better phrasing, a little bit visceral.
Mhm.
There's just so much going on politically, and so much happening economically, but especially within the policy realm, the federal policy realm, and even within these different states, that is so purposefully going after members of our communities, especially like our trans individuals, and
Yes.
assuredly our most vulnerable being Black trans women, first and
Mhm.
foremost. That any form of celebration to me, it's not that it feels moot as much as it feels like, is it really celebratory if we're not tearing the shit apart? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, there has to be like some militancy, like some radicalization surrounding our celebration because that is what Pride was, at the onset. Like Pride didn't just come to fruition because like a bunch of gays and lesbians decided to come together and like have a
Mhm.
parade. That's not what happened.
Right.
Um, which is why, you'll often hear from people, oh, the first Pride was a riot.
Mhm.
And it was,
Yes.
and it was. It absolutely was. But I think sometimes this gets channeled into more of a chant or like a nice platitude than like an actual uncovering of what something like that means and what it meant for the people on Christopher Street in front of Stonewall Inn in 1969 to be doing that, which was the riots. And mind you, they lasted for a matter of days,
Yes.
right? So it wasn't like one night. It wasn't one brick. While one brick might have ignited, the movement,
Mhm.
it more so galvanized something that was already going. They were
Mhm.
already performing sit-ins at bars in New York City because there was like literal policy within the city that you were not allowed to serve alcohol to gay and lesbian people. So
Mhm.
that was a law. So they were already performing sit-ins, a la civil rights movement, right? People learn how to fight for their rights from those that came before them that
Mhm.
did it well and won. Like that's how you perform true facets of liberation theory. It's, you don't always reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you take from one area where
Mhm.
these things actually panned out. And there were so many people that were involved, especially like Black and Brown individuals that had been active within the civil rights movement, that were queer, gay, and lesbian, that were pushing for a lot of this within different organizations in the city. So they were
Mhm.
performing sit-ins at bars. They were routinely being raided by the New York City police, where they would come in and arrest patrons and workers alike. This was like a very common thing.
Mhm.
Everybody knew that your chances of getting raided were like very high.
Yeah.
And even still, they still met up to commune, to be in fellowship with one another, to perform with each other, to dance with each other. Like they knew without any uncertainty that they were constantly within like the purview of oppressive violence and state station violence, by the police force and by New York City. So it is very easy for us to say, like, oh, remember the first Pride's a riot, but it's like, well, A, yes, it was a riot, but B, there was a reason they were being raided.
Mhm.
See, it took like one person, of which we still don't know to this day. People say it, they tend to give this to Marsha P. Johnson. They say that, like, she threw the first brick. We actually don't know for certain. There were like so many, there was so much happening in the moment that nobody's quite
Mhm.
sure. They have ideas that it may have actually been another Black trans woman that threw the first brick, just because she had been there throughout most
Mhm.
of the evening, whereas they believe Marsha may have shown up a little bit later. Um, but we know that that brick got thrown, and we
Right.
know that that led to 3 days worth of them tussling it out in the streets with the police, which is a very foreign concept, I think, for modern day advocates to understand, because we've seen it happen in the civil rights movement, we've seen it happen in
Mhm.
Stonewall. But I know that folks, really condemn and have like grave concerns surrounding like being in direct action with the
Yeah.
police like that, like escalating action. Whereas these folks was they have nothing, honey. They had rocks, some bats, maybe, definitely some bricks, some
Yeah.
twigs, some sticks.
Yep.
They have nothing.
Mhm.
And they were stealing the batons from the police and beating them back. Like they
Yes,
they
they
said, I have this body and this spirit and this right
yes,
to
Lachey.
exist. I have inalienable human rights. And
Mhm.
that is what I am bringing up with me to tussle it out with y'all, who has guns and handcuffs and batons. You can call on the firefighters to come and
Mhm.
spray us down, and dogs and everything else, right? So
Mhm.
you talk about like the billowing, like the breath of anger, like
Mhm.
visceral anger, right? Like righteous anger that
Yeah.
had to occur for that to happen. And then a year later in June was actually the first Pride Parade in New York City.
Yeah.
So it was purposefully done as like an anniversary event called the Christopher Street Parade, to continue like the galvanization and the igniting of like repeatedly coming back and celebrating these series of riots that had occurred, but to like remind people to keep going, like keep
Mhm.
pushing, like keep making this happen. It's not a one-off. It's not just a single night or set of evenings or one event. Like we have to repeatedly come back and keep echoing our need for like equality, for equity, for our human
Mhm.
rights, for our very existence. Because it was, how we often talk about as Black folks, like, they didn't even consider us three-fifths of human.
Yeah.
Like that's how they wanted to look at us, like we weren't fully human. But like at the time, trans, gay, lesbians, like there was no humanity extended. And that's
Mhm.
not to say that those folks suffered, or even like queer intersections or trans
Mhm.
intersections suffer more
Yeah. Yeah.
than we do when we have intersections of race, right?
Mhm.
When we're Black people. But it
Mhm.
does highlight for us that when you are Black and all of these things,
Mhm.
your humanity and the erasure of it tends to go a little bit further, right?
Yeah.
So there was just a lot that came out of that, a lot of different groups and movements. Heck, even oh goodness, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, they started STARS in New
Yeah.
York City, right? And that was
Mhm.
like the street transvestite action revolutionaries. And they
Mhm.
actually stopped attending the Christopher Street Parade, the Pride Parade, a few short years later, because they felt like there was co-option of the movement and of Pride by white gays and lesbians.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
they actually were like, yeah, no, it's a no for us.
Mhm.
Because, right? We started having conversations about Black people and racialized issues underneath the banner of transgender issues and queer and gay and lesbian issues, and you start having conversations about immigration
Mm,
underneath the banner of these things and what it means to be a brown person in New York City in 1970. You know what I'm saying? Even as more folks are immigrating from the Caribbean and from places
mm-hmm.
from Puerto Rico, even as a territory, but even still, you're going to be treated much differently. And that did not bode well for some of the white gays and lesbians who were definitely starting to turn into like, yeah, we had that one issue, but like this was a launch point for us. Like what we got accomplished, able to ignite the movement in the United States, and like whereas we were a fringe or a niche issue before to these politicians, now we're like front and center. We finally have the limelight. We finally have the movement. We finally have people all over the country doing their own things and doing their own parades and like doing their own actions and trying to get into their own politics, et cetera, et cetera. So like, why do you keep like belaboring this point essentially? Like, why do you keep pushing the issue?
Right, belaboring my liberation.
Exactly. And it essentially became one where it was like, oh, so you feel like the work has been accomplished, even though we are still poor, homeless, hungry, suffering,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sickness,
Hmm.
you know, the
Yeah.
dehumanizing behaviors, not just because like, okay, so for us, it wasn't just about the bar, but clearly y'all were fighting for the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all were fighting for the bar. For us, it was like hospitals,
Okay.
schools, access to medicine, access
Mm-hmm.
to jobs, access to education, access to housing, access, like, you know, like these things that we were being denied our own inalienable human rights just because of sexual orientation, gender expression, and
Mm-hmm.
gender identity. Y'all were clearly fighting to be at the counter,
Yeah.
right? Like we know the civil rights movement, it wasn't about the counter. It was about the
Mm-hmm.
segregation and the dehumanization of people and, you know, separate but equal and all that bullshit. Whereas in this instance, while the counter was like the symptom and they were trying to treat the problem to derail the symptom, y'all were fighting for the counter.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all wanted to be at that counter.
Yeah.
And it's the constant discussion that we continue to have about what it means to be in this fight, what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be advocating for our most marginalized intersections underneath our community umbrella, and what it means to have to fight your own within the same battle, right? Like we have to look at some of our white, cis, gay counterparts and be like, we will not have true liberation. We will not have true freedom until we are all free and until the most vulnerable of us, our transgender siblings, our disabled siblings, our immigrant siblings, all these people that exist within the intersection of queer and transness actually have our needs addressed. But y'all just want to party.
Right. Right. And thank you for that. I feel like you've given more than I've ever heard when people talk about Pratt. People are going to get a lesson just from this because that information isn't shared for now. People can Google it, I'm sure, but it's not shared freely when people talk about Pride. It's presented as a party and it's celebration and some shit like that.
Yeah,
Prefer
and
to
like,
bring it together, but it's never presented with that kind of context. So thank you for that because I don't even think people know that context of it. You know?
oh yeah, absolutely. And you're right. That's precisely what it's presented as. And it's not to say that we don't, because there was one conversation that they had when they were deciding on the
Mhm.
word pride. At first, they wanted to say like gay power. And of course, it always takes a black person to be like, no, because we don't have power.
I'll share.
We don't have any power. We don't have any authority. We
Mhm.
don't have the respect. We don't even have the humanity. We don't have power. We're trying to build power, but we do not have it. But one thing that we do have that they cannot take from us ever, not ever, is pride.
Mhm.
We have that. We are proud. And nobody can steal that from us. We are able in the way that we move, in the way that we express, in the way that we dress, in the way that we show up, we are able to exude our pride.
Mhm.
And that cannot be erased, that cannot be taken away, that cannot be confused, right? Plus, you know, it's always takes a black person to be like, plus you start entering the word power and like these white folks is going to become infinitely more violent and aggressive, and they're not going to attack y'all first, they're going to attack us. Like they're coming for us first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because we're the least protected. We're the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
So y'all want to be over there screaming gay power, but like they're not even gonna be checking for y'all. They're gonna be like, that's a nice little float they have there. Let's go over here and harass the black and brown
Yep.
people about this gay power. You know what I'm saying?
We've
But
seen
pride, exactly. But pride is something that all of us, every single person has within themselves, and you showcase it in different ways within your communities and within your intersections, right? So yeah, that's typically people hear pride and they think, oh, the gays are going to go parade again. They're going to be
it. Hmm.
outside. There will be nipple tassels. There will be some glitter.
Hmm.
There will be floats. They'll
Hmm.
have their rainbows out and varying degrees or colors, whatever the case may be. And, that's cute. Or let me take my kids down here for the parade. They're going to be handing out stickers. you know, and all of that is cute, like inclusivity surrounding pride, making them family events or making them places where allies and other people can come to learn and share in community and fellowship with us isn't a bad thing
Hmm.
inherently. But what happens when there is a co-option of your actual movement regarding how you receive tangible outcomes, right? Like pride for me in certain aspects has become a form of placation. We'll give you
Hmm.
this month and
Yeah.
y'all can, here's your permit for your little parade, and y'all can do y'all stuff, and then you can shut the hell up about it for the rest of the year,
Hmm.
and we'll give you rainbows, or if you're Skittles, we'll give you rainbowless
Yeah.
Skittles.
Yeah.
Like, if
T-shirts.
you're Target, we'll give you oatmeal and beige. Like
Mhm.
if you're doing, we'll say our little platitudes.
Yeah.
Pride. We love that you all, ooh, so gay. I love YMCA. Like, we'll give you a little time.
Hmm.
There doesn't have to be any tussling because we gave it to you. There
Right.
doesn't have to be a fight because we let you have it. There doesn't have
Right.
to be an ignition of issues or a further conversation because why are you talking to me outside of June? Don't you know June
Hmm.
is gay place? It's gay month. Why are you trying to talk to me in September or
Right.
December? Why are you trying to talk to me during these cold winter months? Is it because your
Hmm.
bustier and your jock straps ain't keeping you warm? Like, why are you talking to me?
It's not June.
So, right, it's not June. It's not June. Like, y'all get to be like your gayest in June, and any
Hmm.
other time, you just supposed to be an average citizen and watch as we literally police and policy your rights away.
Yes. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
you got to have rainbows in June.
Right.
And it was a summer month. We gave you the nice month. We could have told you to do that shit in February like the black folks, but we gave you a nice month
Right. We
for you
gave
to
you
go
June.
outside and do your thing. And that's the other issue is like just the erasure of like black and brown people underneath the banner of pride in general. A lot of the times we are having conversations with folks, even within my own community, right? My
Hmm.
own black community. I'm having conversations with black people surrounding transphobia, homophobia, and the
Yes.
othering of these intersections all the time. And every time they're talking to me, they're listening to me, I'm listening to them. Most of
Hmm.
my conversations are very cordial because we are
Hmm.
two black folks, right? We are not each other's enemy. We are not at each other's throats, but
Hmm.
often I listen to their language and I remind them, you're talking about me, right? Well, no, I'm talking. They think that the gays and the lesbians
Hmm.
and the trans folks are just white.
Mm.
All of this gay stuff is infiltration from whiteness into our community. Like it is another arm of oppression from whiteness into the black community. They
Yes.
think that the overarching reach of white supremacy and oppression is what causes black people to be gay or
Yeah.
lesbian or trans or queer.
Yes. Yeah.
So when they're combating it, it's almost like they're not even like punching out at the other black person so much as they think fighting us as black, queer, or trans people is fighting white supremacy
Hmm.
and the overarching reach of it and the parachuting of it into our communities. And then I
Hmm.
have to stand there and go, don't get me wrong, we all grow up underneath white supremacy. We all grow up underneath state sanctioned violence. We all grow up underneath oppression, but that is not the reason why I'm a pansexual. That's not what happened.
Right.
Okay, I grew up on the same Disney movies as everybody else with the little white girls and the little white princes. Smooching, whether they was conscious or not. Okay,
Hmm.
like I grew up underneath all of these same things. I attended the same vacation Bible schools. I went to the
Hmm.
same Bible studies. I went to the same Sunday schools. I went to the same Sunday services. Okay, I also was sent down south every summer to spend time with my relatives. that were
Yeah.
still down south after our folks migrated. I did it all.
Hmm.
And I still came out pansexual. So what do you think that means?
Yeah. And
Does it mean
having,
that, oh, go ahead.
no, good. And I was going to say, having those conversations with other Black people is so important because we can't
Mhm.
scream liberation. We mean all Black people. We don't.
All
We
Black
don't just mean
people.
certain segments of Black people. And the way they've kind of co-opted pride, I feel like adds into that, especially locally. So for you all watching, Tag is in Allegheny County, Greater Pittsburgh area, but we do work everywhere. We do some work in Atlanta as well. We do a lot of work with our national partners, but our base is in Allegheny County. And locally with Pride, is to me is disgusting the way that it is handled. The parade, the corporate sponsors who we know don't know anything about equity, diversity, inclusion, access at all. They get a rubber stamp. They'll donate and they'll be on the flyer or some shit. They'll be in have a banner on the parade, and
Yes.
they'll be like, or they'll table at an event, and they'll be like, no,
Hmm.
or even donating. Like they'll donate and feel like they've done something. So,
Yes.
but that leads to some of the Black people who have their own issues. Oh, that's just that 1 month where y'all just no. Pride has a deep and rich history,
Yes.
very much so connected to Black people and our struggle. It's not
Yes.
a separate thing. It is connected. But if people aren't having these kind of conversations with that historical background, I just think it further there's that wedge that's already exists on top of religion and Christianity and all that other stuff. When you add all that stuff into how some people feel when it comes to Black people, and there's it's people's agenda. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Who? Whose agenda?
Whose agenda?
And mind you, it's a strawman argument, anyways, because there's always, because fascists are always creating a boogeyman, right?
Yeah,
Like
I'm
white
sure.
supremacy is not inventive. So
Hmm.
it usually just says this blank is bad. And over the centuries, you can insert black, Hispanic, if we're talking
Hmm.
Japanese internment, Asians,
Hmm.
right? Gays. And
Hmm.
then when they didn't win the battle surrounding marriage equality and it was upheld,
Hmm.
then it became trans people. Like
Yep.
almost overnight, the moment we got marriage equality, a month later, South Carolina entered in their first anti trans bathroom bill because
Mm.
conservatism needs there to be a boogeyman so that you don't look or pay attention to any of their economic or financial policy and you are always engaged in a cultural war. We need to create a boogie person, and it's
Mhm.
always your kids, just like it was with Black people. Well, especially
Mhm.
with Black men, it was white women. With
Yeah.
Hispanics, it was drugs.
Mhm.
And then with gay men, and initially it was they're going to assault you in bathrooms. And now with trans women, it's like, oh, people are just going to fake being trans so they have access to people. And I don't know how to tell people any more than I have that most people just go to the bathroom to piss and defecate. And if somebody wants to harm, assault,
Mhm.
or rape a woman, a fucking bathroom placard's not about to stop them. Like it doesn't like put out a laser beam and test you for your fucking genitals before it allows you in or any of that shit. Like that's not how any of this works. There are going to be people, regardless of their intersections, regardless of their genders, regardless of their race, regardless of
Right.
their background, that are fucking trash, that are trash, that are abusers, that are enabled by other abusers, and are going to go out of their way to harm people. And just like inherently criminalizing all trans people, especially trans women, with this label of either being a groomer or a sexual predator, it's harmful to them just as harmful as it is automatically inherently criminalizing Black people, our bodies, and especially Black men as thugs and criminals. Like
Mhm.
you have to listen to the messaging and question, why is it that there's always inherent criminalization about everybody that isn't a white male, even though white males account for some of the largest domestic terrorism and mass shootings in this country? But when
Mm.
it's them, it's just this lone instance. They can gun down dozens of people and it's just this lone shooter, lone wolf. But when it comes to queer, trans, or people of color, Black folks especially, every single incident becomes representative of
Mhm.
our intersection, representative of our community, representative of us. So, like, you can't have a trans person do anything negative in this country without them being like, I knew it. I
Yep.
knew it. Those they're screwed up in the head. They're psychotic
Yep.
or this and that. Just as Black people have existed for millennia, so has transness.
Absolutely.
Okay, I belong to an entire African spiritual tradition that has what would be considered trans Orisha, right? What would be
Hmm.
considered genderless Orisha,
Yeah.
like genderless gods and goddesses
Hmm.
and things. So, and we've seen this in all indigenous cultures globally, here in the Americas and abroad, that these individuals who do not exist within these firm gender binaries exist. And for our Americas, it's typically referred to as two spirit underneath certain cultures, right?
Hmm.
So we know that all of the things that we lost in colonization are trans intersections or queer intersections also lost in colonization. While they were running around here inventing race
Yeah.
and erasing us,
Hmm.
our ethnicities, our languages, our cultures, our rich histories, they were also running around beating the gender binary into everybody because when you were trying to conquer the world, you need one band, one sound, and it cannot be complicated because the moment you start creating nuance in the conversation, people start thinking that they can carry on in ways that are similar to how it was prior to colonization. No, race exists. There is white and there is all the rest of you subhuman motherfuckers. And there's only two genders, and that
Yep.
is man and a woman. And anything outside of that is getting cut down,
Yep.
and we are still so deeply colonized and indoctrinated to this day that we don't even know how pervasive the history of like queer and trans existences were prior to colonization in all of these places. And we think that this is new. We think that
Hmm.
we invented this shit in the 21st century and
Hmm.
everybody's just trying to shove it down everybody else's throats as this new thing, like it's a trend or something, when it's like, no, as long as we have existed,
Yes.
queerness,
Absolutely.
transness has
Hmm.
existed. It just wasn't taboo,
Right.
so these are the things I prefer for us to discuss and
Hmm.
unpack during a Pride Month because there is so much erasure by the oligarchy, by the corporate elite, by the capitalism surrounding our real humanity, our real history, our real needs in the modern times,
Hmm.
our actual issues, and what it is that we need from within our own community, because you always have to have your own house in order first, but also from our allied communities surrounding our human rights, our like equitable human rights, and to your point, the co-option
Hmm.
of corporate banners and sponsors and bullshit. When these corporations, why would you show up at my pride parade when y'all spend all day harming everybody? You don't pay people right.
Right.
You've been price gouging us. Like, yeah, we talk inflation, but y'all was raising them prices anyways. As quiet as it's kept. You're not good stewards of lands. You're not good stewards
Hmm.
out here in community. You're not good stewards of the environment. Y'all are like a succubus. All you do is take. You
Yes.
don't really give. And giving crumbs every Pride Month, like that's supposed to solve the problem. Where you don't see the equitable or the tangible impacts in community. Does the homeless rate amongst like
Hmm.
queer and trans people go down every Pride Month when they give this money? No. Do
No.
people have better access to medicine, healthcare, education? No. Do people magically get housing overnight just because one of these companies donated some money? No. Like, do people have clothes, food for their bellies because they donate some money? No.
No.
No. People's lives are not positively, tangibly impacted whatsoever just because a motherfucking American Eagle walked in the parade with their banners and shit and,
Right.
and, and donated $5,000. That all you did was pay for next year's parade.
That's it. That that's literally all you did. I love what you said about having a revolutionary lens to these celebrations. It is so important, especially now, in a town where they are literally, taking shit away, giving pardons out like it's water, like it's a game and shit. You have to be revolutionary about that. You have to be able to unlearn white supremacy and unlearn how you've internalized it. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's why a lot of black people can't move past anything because they haven't unlearned things. So they
Mhm.
allow these what they consider allies to know we'll give you this space to have this Juneteenth and we'll do all these wonderful things for you because we care about you. But we didn't ask for that shit. We want lands. We want
Yes,
political prisoners free. We want
yes,
liberation. We want to be able to breathe the air. We want to be able to have access to food. We don't want any of that shit. We
right.
didn't ask for that.
We want
So,
reparations.
right, the radical people asking for these things, what happens is our voices kind of get silenced out by the safe black people.
Well, there is some capitulation that occurs there, right? And I'm gonna say something that's
Mhm.
controversial, but I'm gonna say it because I am the daughter of many deacons,
Mhm.
deaconesses, pastors, Sunday school teachers, etc. So I'm allowed to say this shit. Okay, it's
Okay.
literally ancestral. It's in me. And me and my ancestors, when I go to my altar and we chop it up, we have these very conversations. I'm gonna still pull out this verse. We're gonna talk about it, but we're gonna talk about how some aspects of this culture, this
Yes.
churchy culture, sometimes cuts us off a little bit. When you present everything from a position of prayer,
Mhm.
just pray on it.
Mhm.
Give it to God. Give everything to God and pray on it.
Mhm.
It reduces people's actions
Mhm.
because they forget. What did God say? Prayer without good works is dead.
Yes, it is.
Dead. Prayer without action
Mhm.
don't mean nothing because I'm listening to you, but you don't move. You don't change. You don't switch it up. Like you keep coming to me every day, same thing, or every once a week, same thing, every month, same thing, every year, same thing. But
Exactly.
you don't move. I done put stuff in front of you to get you to move, and you don't reach out and take it. You don't even see it. I done brought this person to you to teach you how to do the thing, and you despise them because you deem them to be too radical or too militant.
Yes, yes.
Prayer without good works is dead, but oftentimes the first thing when you see something, some violence enacted on the community, the first thing that folks turn around and say, "Oh my God, I'm praying for everybody." Girl, get up, get up, get up, stand up, get outside. Like, what do you mean? We pray for everybody, okay? There's like 800 niggas in this community. Y'all not down there at that police station? What do you mean? Y'all
That's
not at
it.
the mayor's house? You not down there at City Hall
Mhm.
making demands, them and being like, and we not leaving until y'all do something about this. Like, prayer, and I understand we got jobs, multiple jobs, we tired, we're raising these babies, we're taking care of these old folks. Like they keep us in a position of oppression on purpose economically so that we are too tired to fight resourcefully on the other end. So I completely understand it, but something's gotta give because people thought dictatorship was coming, people thought authoritarianism was coming, people thought fascism was going to rewind its ugly head on top of it's here. It is here. It is
Mhm.
literally, when I cannot
Right
say
here.
this, it is right on top of it. It is ongoing. It is happening
Mhm.
because when they are done putting a mask on and a boots and running around here, snatching up people and kidnapping people and that are doing things legally in these court systems and everything else, where do you think they're going?
Mhm.
Why do y'all think y'all are excused? It's I'm telling you, we could carry on all day, but I'm gonna let you get to your segment. But yes, I really
Oh,
appreciate you giving me the space to talk about this history, the space to talk about these, paradigms and some of the intersectionality of how these
mhm.
things impact us, especially as Black people,
Yeah.
and just for having this platform and these discussions spawn you the shit. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I thank you for coming on and having a real conversation, about pride. I'm going to bring Kenneth back on for the last segment that I call talking shit.
Mhm. We started early.
Yeah, we
I was
started.
about to say, I was about to say that. I said, I'm sitting in the back room and I was thinking to myself, they just started without me.
Yeah.
You know, but I just want to say thank you. That conversation right there was enlightening to me and also educational. And more of our people need to be in these spaces and hear these kind of conversations and just hear the real meaning and hear the realness about what's going on. And
Hmm.
all that fake ass shit. It's crazy.
Hmm.
Right. And they
It
do it
is.
on purpose. It's real fake. It's real fugazi. They do it on purpose because if we were to align, even let's say, and I'm of labor, right? I am co-national president of this organization, but I'm also a steel worker in the Civil and Human Rights Department there. And I have been preaching forever. I said, look, The moment we get tired of all these shiny objects and the bullshit, like them wanting to be mad at each other, we gonna start doing what King said we needed to do. He said, "I'm not just coming to Washington for equality. I'm coming for our check
Yes.
because baby rent is due, and we have labored in this country underneath the worst conditions,
Hmm.
producing the most economically, making everybody else out here stinking, fat, rich, all that, and y'all still ain't cut us our check." And as quiet as it's kept, but it shouldn't be, they didn't kill King when he was out there talking about us being integrated into schools and lunch counters.
Hmm.
But the moment he took his behind down there to Tennessee to talk about labor rights and economic justice
Hmm.
and getting Black folks into a union and them having the ability to collectively bargain and negotiate their treatment and benefits and wages on the job, he was gone
Hmm.
out here.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
it's one thing for them platitudes, bro. It's one thing for you to want to be in parks and using toilets and sitting wherever you want on the bus. It's another thing for you to ask for money to get some actual
Right.
money. It's another thing to ask for money.
Right. Right. That kind of brings me to the. So there's three things that I want to talk shit on. So the first one would be our active McKeesport police violence campaign. So
Mm-hmm.
to update everyone, we've been fighting with our police department since our existence for the past 10.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, the past 4 months, there have been two viral videos of them beating up black people. One was a 72-year-old black man where they fractured his ribs and they took the trach that was in his throat and shoved it down even more by, putting their knees on his neck repeatedly. And these things are on video. So of course, Tag responded. We have active demands we've put out. We've been to council meetings. We've had rallies. Our demands consist of a police review board, which we recognize is not really a revolutionary concept, but it
Mm-hmm.
is something that we feel like would be needed. They can start their own, or the Allegheny County Police Review Board, which we were active with getting passed, is active, so they can just opt into that. Because the way that our county is structured, just for everyone who's watching, Allegheny County, Pittsburgh is one city within Allegheny County. We have over 25 municipalities, boroughs, and cities. Everyone has their own everything. McKeesport is that. We have our own police, mayor, we have our own police department, school. Everything is totally separate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no jurisdiction for these cops in Allegheny County. They get to run around here and do whatever the fuck they want to do. And literally, that is what is happening. There's this narrative that it is new road cops. That is bullshit. This is the system. This is McKeesport Police Department. It's been like that from the beginning. Policing as a whole is violent. But if you're talking about McKeesport Police Department, it's been like this from the beginning. So one of the things we're asking people to do is boycott city events
Mm-hmm.
because we recognize that they use these events to cause division and to also, control and to say they're actually doing things. So we put this boycott out, right? Within a day of putting the boycott out, the reason we put it out became apparent. The McKeesport NAACP, the mayor calls them because they're the safe group, and they decide they're going to have a meeting the same day we are. So they went on and had their meeting. And at that meeting, the mayor was basically like, well, there was an investigation. And what he meant by that is he called the FBI, him or his chief. The FBI looked at the video. They decided there was no wrongdoing. And the NAACP took that. So we actually did report the McKeesport NAACP to the national chapter
Mm-hmm.
because that shit was horrible. Like, how can you work against, your own interests? So then that happened. So then Juneteenth, that we have been involved with for the past 4 years, whether it be us donating, us tabling, or us helping planning. We were going to be involved this year with the celebration. However, they decided to work with the city regardless of our boycott.
Mm-hmm.
So they went through with it, but then something happened where the city decided we're going to take the venue away. They were supposed to give myself and another community leader, Corey Sanders, an award, but that didn't happen because the mayor didn't want them to. And it wasn't necessarily about the award, it's just about the principle of all these things. Like we asked for a boycott, now all these things are happening. So they pulled away, and now they're working with another group who works with the city indirectly. And we get fireworks. So all that shit happened, and they given us fireworks. And these motherfuckers is around her acting like that is the best thing in the world. And it is not. Like we didn't ask for that. We asked for a police review board.
Yeah.
We asked to defund the police by 10% and invest that money back into black communities.
Mm-hmm.
We asked for mental health responders with police.
Mm-hmm.
We have substantial demands that we have asked for. So we don't want a Juneteenth. We don't want no damn awards, want no fireworks. Y'all can keep all that shit. We're
Mm-hmm.
not interested in any of that. So, and this is like real time stuff. The last meeting we just went to, we did a silent protest, and
Mm-hmm.
we held signs. And when the council and mayor stood up, we turned our back to them because we feel like they've turned their back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Just happened to be at that meeting, they decided to promote one officer, hire one, and then add six cadets. Six cadets. No one asked you to hire more police. However, the McKeesville NAACP did. So they're choosing to listen to the narrative of no, we just need more black cops. We need more cops that live in this community. And Tag is saying we don't need cops, period. We need to get rid of police and we need to focus more on community. So Brittany, when you were talking about the co-opting and
Mm-hmm.
kind of that safe language, that's what they do. They go with the people they deem safe
Yes.
and they attempt to silence us out.
Yeah, the placation, right? Because oftentimes, and sometimes I even have to say this to my own daughter, right? She's 15. Sometimes you can have the greatest of intentions,
Yeah.
but your impact is different. So
Mm-hmm.
you could have intended for this thing to be good. You
Mm-hmm.
could have intended for this thing to be righteous. You could have
Mm-hmm.
intended for this thing to be valid, but the impact was trash. And ultimately, it was the impact wasn't really real impact. It was just placation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Again, with the platitudes and the plaques and the bullshit that makes everybody feel seen and heard. But
Right.
what does it mean for an entity like a city, like the city of McKeesport, to take a portion of your
Mm-hmm.
budget, to your own point, and actively invest it in here? Because we know where crime comes from. We don't need no more studies. We don't need no more statistics. We
Right.
don't need no more conversation. We know crime comes from poverty. We've known this for over 100 years because
Mm-hmm.
when the Irish and Italians weren't white, they was committing crimes.
Mm-hmm.
When they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have access to whiteness, proximity to whiteness, the same benefits and same avenues as whiteness, as Protestant whiteness, they was committing crimes to the tune of a 3-part Oscar-winning series,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's cool to root for motherfuckers when they're oppressed and they're white, coming to the Americas and being treated less than and watching them be a part of mobs and mafias and
Mm-hmm.
criminal entities, right? Like all of that makes sense. But the moment black people who have been criminalized, being oppressed, and bowled over from this country's inception try to
Mm-hmm.
make a little wiggle room for themselves, then it's thugs and gangsters and all black people are criminals and things of that nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the direct tether to crime is poverty. So what would it mean for a city like McKeesport to invest in communities? If you see this as a high crime population, go door to door, talk
Mm-hmm.
to people. What
Mm-hmm.
is going on? What are your needs? What are your child's needs?
Yeah.
There's a young black male in your home. What does he need?
Mm-hmm.
What safety does he need? Does he need access to mental health resources? Is he dealing with something? Has he been traumatized? Did he witness a friend die? Or has he had a close family member, especially a male family member, be incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a manner that frankly should have never happened?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? These kids do not turn to things
Mm-hmm.
because they don't need things. They
Yeah.
turn to these things because they have needs. And if the city even devoted even a small fraction of time towards the impoverished communities, towards the black communities within McKeesport to figure out what are your needs, right, in community. Because if the needs are being addressed, then we can start having the uncomfortable unpacking conversations surrounding what it means to not internalize different forms of brutality or different forms of white
Yeah.
supremacy or indoctrination. But because the needs are not met, we can't even have any of these conversations, right? Like what we were saying before.
Yeah.
It is hard to talk to people or to demand action out of the people that are tired, that are weary, that are overworked, underpaid,
Mhm.
like over harassed, right? These folks are like, I am just trying to wake up tomorrow, God willing. I'm
Right.
just trying to get this kid through school and graduated with a diploma. Okay. I am just trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay for brakes and the timing belt
Mhm.
and the oil change and windshield wipers all at the same time. Like I am just trying to figure out how to stretch my dollar at the grocery store when I see that my bill has gone up twice fold from the last year.
Mhm.
They give us no room to breathe on purpose.
Yeah.
They give us no time, no
Yeah.
space, no rest, no respite on purpose. Even the police, they overburden us in action in state sanctioned violence on purpose because then if there's 50 fires and you got two buckets,
Yep. Yep.
you're gonna have to start picking one, and no matter what, somebody's gonna get burned.
Yep.
Somebody is gonna get burnt to the ground.
Mhm.
So to have them be in a position, because these I hate these politicians because they always act like they can't do shit.
Mhm.
Who's in charge here?
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. It's not rocket science. It's but you have people who let them kind of placate to not push through that community care. If you're talking about being over police, we have a lawsuit now against McKeesboro Police for how they responded when one of their officers was shot with over policing. With over policing us, and I get it. Like I get it that people are tired. I'm tired too. I'm tired as well. But we have to, and that's why it's so important to know your history and to know the connection to your ancestors, because we have to dig into that so we can fight, so we can get more than fireworks and then just local celebrations. Like we want to be able to eat. Like we have some of the worst air quality in the world in McKeesport, literally
Mm-hmm.
in the Mon Valley. We can't breathe the air. We can't drink the water. So I don't want any of that stuff. So when I say we don't want that, that's what I mean. I mean it's
Mm-hmm.
nice to have a celebration. Yes, it's very nice. But I'd rather be able to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather be able to drink the water. And this alliance that the city is doing is like the state aligning with certain black people. So
Mm.
I'm aligned with just you because you're just going to keep things mellowed out.
Mhm.
And we
Mm-hmm.
have to get to the point where we recognize that and we see that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I recognize I'm doing this work for my children's children's children. So I can't
Okay.
look these babies in the face and say, I'm gonna take these fireworks. No, 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 no. We ain't gonna take that shit. We're gonna fight for what is ours. We're gonna fight for this land. We're gonna fight for these reparations. Like those are the kind of things we have to be saying, to our communities. Even if we're taking it out of a McKeesport point, we're fighting like we fighting everything at this point. We have to be able to rest and resist. I don't think that the two are separate. I feel like the two come together. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times those communities try to say separate, like the spirituality and the movement work. No, that's all together. Like you have to be
Yes.
able, and rest doesn't mean, oh, I'm always going to sleep. Rest just
Right.
means maybe I'll take a break. Maybe the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I do when I get up is don't go to work. Maybe I'll just go sit outside.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll take a walk outside. That's what it means. It doesn't mean like you're asleep all the time. It just means that you're rested to be able to know how you want to resist, to be able to recognize that our ancestors have done this. Maybe let me go read this book. Just like Brittany, you were saying earlier about the connections between the Black liberation, the LGBT community. Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
all these things are connected. So you have to be able to rest, so you can resist.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
The fireworks thing is really frying me. I don't know how you feel about Kenneth, but it's just really taking me out. Like
Well,
you had.
I think when
No,
we look back at it, right, because what I hear is we got to do this work together, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like if they say, well, Fawn, we want to give you all the fireworks, and you say, we don't want that bullshit. But then we go across the street to the neighbor and say, well, we'll give you the fireworks. And then the neighbor says, well, I'm just doing something for black people, right? You know what I mean? Let's just think about it. If we all work together from the very beginning, this shit is already dead.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it goes like even back to slavery, right? Two two folks like, man, we're gonna beat the hell out these people. You know what I mean? We're
hmm
gonna overthrow them. You know what I mean? And then
Yep.
we got three folks that say we can't do it. We can't do
Mm-hmm.
it right. And
hmm
then we tend to try to do shit when we're overtired. And then when we're overtired, we don't even have anything left to fight with.
Mm-hmm. That's
You,
it.
you know. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I heard what you're saying, but some kind of way we got to get on one accord.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have
Do.
to
Yeah.
throughout it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the machine and white supremacy, they're all on the same mode.
Mm-hmm.
They got one message, which is we want to own all this shit. We want to have all this shit. We don't care that you earned it. We want it. We want it all. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have us, all this infighting, bickering. Well, who? In reality, we have to be at our most militant. There's nothing else that we can do. We have tried
I'm sure.
everything. We have tried forming cohorts, we've tried collaborating, we've tried being citizen partners and community partners. We have tried everything,
Hmm.
everything. And these people, and mind you, as quiet as it's kept, even when some of the politicians look like us, I don't mean shit because the people that are endorsing them, our local politicians get lobbied the exact same way statewide and federal
Mm-hmm.
politicians get lobbied. The moment they get elected, the first thing they thinking about is how they fit to get reelected. They ain't thinking about how it is that I'm actually going to support the people or uplift the people. They just thinking about how can I keep this job?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of these folks, especially if they're these politicians, they don't have to get that job like this. They don't want to have to do it. But ultimately, those of us who are not in those positions of authority, we have to look at each other and recognize that we are not each other's enemies. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
And our issues are entangled. We are tied to each other. Your It can't always be a matter of, oh, well, those immigrants got this, or why should we care about gay rights? Those gays got this, or why should we, you know what I'm saying? Or like, why, well, we don't get what black folks get every February. No, baby, those are crumbs. You trying to eat a full meal off of crumbs and pieces and shit. You over here trying to pull them together all into one plate so that you can say that you had something to eat, but you ain't had shit, nothing that was substantial at least.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, if we were able to take our crumbs and put them together underneath the same accord, then we might actually be able to bake a piece of bread or some shit. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But until we stop looking at each other as the problem and start looking to each other to be a part of the solution,
Mm-hmm.
don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't have to like them. You don't even have to like how they move. But realistically, the goal is for us stop undermining the ask.
Yeah.
Stop undermining the ask. And if you're afraid, if you have concerns, if you are worried about retaliation, because that seems like what it is, then come sit with us. We will support each other. We will
Mm-hmm.
stand and fight with one another. But the more people that come and seek out that support, that solidarity, the less they have to piecemeal or to divide us with. Like the more you have folks that are like, no, I'm turning my back to the authority. I'm turning my back to the power keepers. I'm turning my back to these motherfuckers that are not going to do anything to undermine their positions, that are most concerned with themselves and not with our community as a large. I'm not fucking with you. If the churches don't fuck with you, if the community organizations don't fuck with you, if the after school programs don't fuck with you, then ultimately you have to do something because these people are still elected.
Hmm.
At the end of
Absolutely.
the day, these people are still elected.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that like we have free or fair elections or really all that much in this country, but they are
Right.
still elected. And I get the fear of certain folks of losing access to the crumbs that they've been given. When you become
Mm-hmm.
accustomed to surviving off of crumbs, no crumb really starts to feel like oppression, right? But baby, come get this cookie. Come get this cookie. You ain't gotta
Yeah.
eat the crumbs. You can have the whole meal.
Exactly. No, exactly. Um, so thank you all so much for coming to join us. I feel like what you just said, Brittany, and what this whole time, like that's the answer. That's how we get through this. Is community.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's how we get through this. Is working with each other. There are a lot of people fighting this movement on a lot of different fronts. There's people fighting 47. That's what I call them. There's people fighting locally. There's people fighting statewide, regionally, and we need all of that. All of that should be happening at the same time. We will put our upcoming events in the chat. We do have a Juneteenth celebration. We are doing the McKeesport Library on June 19th from 1 to 5. And I'll be there talking about, basically just talked about today, like the history of Juneteenth and why it's so important. We also will be at Swissvale's Juneteenth on June 29th. We'll be tabling there. As far as the McKeesport Police Violence Campaign, we do have a support letter that we have out that we're asking individuals and organizations to sign on to. And I will say this, TAG has been around for 10 and a half years, and we have shown solidarity and we have fought with a lot of folks. So I will be looking to see who will be signing on to this letter.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you call yourself an ally, if you call yourself a supporter, then I need to see you there. And if I'm not, I will call you out. If I do not see you
Mm-hmm.
there, we have labored a lot through this movement over the years.
Hmm.
So I shouldn't even have to say this. I should have put the support letter out, and we should have over 100 signatures on that support letter.
Okay.
We
Okay.
are asking people, if you have a contract with the city, I don't care. If you've had one in the past, I don't care. If you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
hold on to your crumbs, I don't care. Because
Mm-hmm.
my people, literally in McKeesport, can't walk down the street without being
Mm-hmm.
fearful that the cops are going to kill them. We are
Mm-hmm.
terrified that these police are going to kill someone because no one's holding them accountable,
Mm-hmm.
from the elected officials to some of the community members. So we will be asking people to sign on to this support letter. We'll put it in the chat here. But spread the word for that. If you want to know how you can help, we need people to amplify that story. We need people to amplify the things we were going through. So I will put that in the chat here. I thank you all so much for coming on and even staying for the talking shit segment, because people usually don't do that. So thank you
Absolutely.
all. Do you all have any closing words you want to share? You don't have to.
I
Talk to
just
you,
want to say
Kim.
thank you all, and thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you all for having me on. You know what I mean? It's very enlightening. We're an example, right? We can see
Mm-hmm.
how black folks can come together, and we receive our people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? We always receive our people. So hey, let's keep on getting it. You know what I mean? I think somebody told me the other day, we can't win it all today, but we can do is leave this place a little better than we found it.
That's right.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Kenneth. I just want to say thank you as well for the history, the positivity, the words that you have shared here, for being and engaging in conversation with me and teaching me so much as well. And thank you, Fawn, just for the space. Always, it's like you said when you came on, you said, dang, they started without me. Because me and Fawn be kin. Boy, it's a kiki every time. We are always discussing these things because if you're not having the conversation, sometimes you can feel like maybe it's you
Yeah.
that is losing their sanity, right? Like that's the goal, is to make us have a position of self-doubt, not one of like true introspection or self-reflection, but actual doubt and what it is that we are doing, or the assertion that nobody else wants this. That's not true. A lot of people want a lot, and they
Mm-hmm.
deserve everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. They deserve everything that this country has. And ultimately, what it's going to take is for us to seize our means of production, because we are so integral to this economy. We are so integral to these communities. The work that we still do, the labor that we still perform is so necessary, right? What happened when COVID happened? Everybody became frontline workers overnight. And most of those frontline workers happen to look like who? Me
Mm-hmm.
and you.
That's right.
So all of a sudden we became necessary workers. We were unskilled
Mm-hmm.
laborers 2 seconds ago, but now we were necessary. So just so necessary. So all of this, keeping this economy going, right? And I remind myself of that all the time, because I'm like, we have it.
Mm-hmm.
We have it. And as long as we lean into each other and on community, like I said, we stop reaching our hand out for crumbs. We turn ourselves inward a little bit. We start saying, okay, I'm gonna need you to gather some of these crumbs from over here. I'm gonna need to gather some of these crumbs because we have a fight that's coming. So
Yeah.
that means we're gonna have to be ready. Okay. It's like hibernation. We prepare for the winter. We gonna have to get ready real quick. As long as we can do that and then face ourselves back outwards and say, and we ain't doing shit until y'all, receive and actually put forth efforts to deal with our demands, you would be shocked. You would be shocked how quick they turn tail.
Yep.
Because economically, we are integral and necessary, and they can't survive without us. Because if they could, we wouldn't still be here laboring and breathing. underneath these conditions. If they didn't need us, we could be gone,
For
but we're
sure.
not.
That's right. That's right about
That's
that.
right. Yep, yep. Recognize your people power.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, thank you all for joining us so much. And you can watch this on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, as well as on our Instagram story. So please make sure you share it. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fawn. Have a good day,
Thank
y'all.
you
Happy
all.
Sunday.
Thank y'all.